Hey, what's going on, everybody? Adam here from AA for Entrepreneurs. So, Andrew is on a 4-day trek right now through the mountains in either Vermont or northern Massachusetts. I forget, or western Massachusetts. That's not important. But what is important is I had a guest for tonight and completely forgot that Andrew was leaving. Like, we had everything else already all figured out for the whole day, for when he's gone. So everything's all set. And I somehow I dropped the ball and just forgot that we do a podcast on Thursday evenings and Andrew won't be here. So we're doing something very special for y'all. We have a never before seen uh, panel that was at Freedom Rally in Boston, which, if you don't know, this is the second biggest cannabis event in the U.S., only to Seattle Hemp Fest. Used to be called Hemp Fest in Boston, but Seattle Hemp Fest trademarked it, and there goes that name. So now it is the Freedom Rally. So make sure you guys check this out. Comment still. I'll be watching the comments. So if you'd like to learn anything about growing, we got some heavy hitters on here. We got Danny Danko. We have a gentleman named Chris, I believe, who came up with a cultivar himself that's really famous. You'll hear about that on there. And Andrew's on there with me, and we absolutely had just an amazing panel at Freedom Rally. So enjoy. Please comment. Let me know if you have any questions. Peace. Oh, y'all doing out there though? Y'all having a good time at Freedom Rally? Wow, really? Y'all asleep? Woo! Yeah, get some energy, y'all. Come on. I know we're all a little stony baloney, but it's all good.
Hello, hello. All right, so let's get this panel started about the art of cultivation. I am not really moderating it, but I want to know, where do we start with cultivation? What's the art of cultivation? Where do we begin? What should people know?
I think the first thing is why you should even grow. I guess is because that's the best way to know what's in the product,
Yep.
right? And to know the quality. And if you grow your own, you're automatically gonna, if you know what you're doing, you're gonna get a better product than you can buy at a dispensary.
Yep.
Automatically, and you're gonna know everything that went into it. You're gonna know what strain it is, whether there was pesticides used, all that stuff that they do lab testing for. You already know for sure because you did it yourself, and it's fun. But I guess we should do intros too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, you know what? I'm sorry. I apologize because I had to go do the sound check. So please, that's where we were. We were at number 2 before the sound went off. Please, number 2, tell me yeah, please. I apologize. It's the sound system. I don't know. I'm just trying to improvise. So we're going to start over and let everybody introduce themselves and where they're from. Sorry, we had a technical difficulty. Please, my brother, please start off.
All right. Please start this off. My name is Brian. PB over at the Honeycomb Farms. We are caregivers out of Maine, and we have caregiver storefronts, and we grow our own.
All right, thank you very much. And we have the gentleman number 2.
My name is Matthew Gordon, and I'm from Salem, Oregon. And a real honor for me to be here. I created this strain, Old Toby. It's a medical strain, and developed a lot of advanced breeding methods that are getting scientific recognition finally, and overwhelming influence of people, reaching out about my strain. And so I thank you all for having me here.
All right, thank you very much. All right, number 3, gentlemen.
My name is Andrew Wilkinson. I have a hemp farm in Taunton, Massachusetts. I started out last year as a vegetable farmer and then quickly realized after the farm bill that hemp is a lot more profitable than kale. So I switched into growing hemp, and here we are now, just a little shy of harvest, almost there.
All right, all right. Next.
I'm Danny Danko. I'm the senior cultivation editor at High Times Magazine. I've been there almost 20 years now. But I'm from here, actually. Grew up here in Boston. Started growing here, started smoking here, started dealing here.
Hey.
Many, many, many moons ago. But I've been coming to the Freedom Rally all my life. I love this event. It wasn't always like this. There was 300 arrests one year. So we've come a long way. And basically, I just want to encourage people to grow their own because, like I said, you get a better product if you grow your own. And you have that right here in Massachusetts to grow your plants. So there's no reason not to. And it's not typical. It's not something you need to do for profit. But if you want to do that too, you can. But really, head stash is what it's all about.
Absolutely. So, first of all,
I just wanted to add to that, Dan. So your answer to that, the reason why people is that passion. You got to have a passion and a love,
Yeah.
and that's awesome. Thank you for saying that.
Definitely got to put the plant first if you're going to decide to cultivate, because the way you get a quality product is by putting all your effort into it and paying attention to it and checking on it every day and things like that. I also am the author of this book, Cannabis, A Beginner's Guide, because like I said, everyone's afraid of corporate cannabis and all this boof and mids and all these things you're finding out there in the world. But the truth is you can grow your own and have a fine quality product for pennies to the dollar and never have to buy cannabis again from anywhere. So that's kind of what I encourage people to do.
absolutely. So first of all, I just want to say I'm honored to be on this panel and to be at Freedom Rally. Been coming here since, I don't even know, since before I was 18 for sure. And smoking weed in here and just being like, damn, it would be so cool to be speaking on one of those panels. And, here we are. My name is Adam Souza. I'm co-owner of Urban Acres, the hemp farm out in Taunton, Massachusetts. We're also a processor and manufacturer. And we're trying to help the farmers. Farmers are out here having to sell their land for cheap, and they're kind of getting ripped off, or they're having to do 100-year leases on solar, which is basically like, I'm going to extort your great-grandchildren, which is awful, or they're making $400 an acre with corn when they could be making upwards of $30,000 an acre with hemp. So we're here to try to help save farming with hemp. Such an amazing plan. Thank you.
How we doing, everybody? My name is Michael Marinaro. I'm born and raised in Chelmsford, Massachusetts. Was there for 30 years. I'm a 7-year medical marijuana patient and advocate for patients, and mass home grower as well, organic home grower, and really have a love for this plant. Everything you put into it is everything that plant expresses. So you got to have a really organic growing style to have a good product promoted of your growth.
Do we all grow organically here? You guys all?
I definitely encourage people to replicate nature as closely as possible. And remember that you're not growing weight, you're not growing, you're not growing money, you're growing essential oil, terpenoids, flavonoids, and that's what you're growing. You're producing that, the essential oil of the flower. So don't think of it in terms of ounces and pounds and things like that. It's all about the terps and the flavonoids and the essential oil, the THC, CBD. In the case of hemp, it's just as important to get that essential oil production, not the weight, but the oil. That's important.
Yeah, a big part. Like, it's not for the profit, but as all of you know, these dispensaries are extremely expensive, and the quality really isn't even there. Like, if you grow organically, I have 100% faith. Yeah. If you grow organically, I have holy shit, that's a lot louder. So does that mean you guys couldn't hear anything I said at all this whole time?
No, we heard.
Okay. All right. So, you said don't be too loud though, because, all right, so I'll whisper. Shit, what was I just saying? Stoner brain.
We're talking about, growing hemp and
so it's a huge money saver, even with your electric bill. Once you figure out how to tinker things in your own home grow, and I take it from me, I helped my mom set up a home grow, and she was spending, I believe, $200 a month, basically between the electric and water. $200 a month to basically have an unlimited supply of medicine is very, very inexpensive, considering it's like $380 an ounce in dispensaries. So, and for better quality stuff, because like I was saying, I don't know if you guys heard that, but I fully believe if you learn how to fully grow organic and grow your soil, that you could grow better than all of these dispensaries. No offense if you're listening.
It's absolutely true. And in my travels, I've visited probably many thousands of different grow rooms and grow spaces. And I can honestly tell you, one of the main things that I've learned is the bigger you go, the lower the quality.
Yep.
So these big 50, 100,000 square foot facilities are not producing the quality that you can do yourself in a 4x4 tent. It's just not. It's not even comparable.
One of the things. Oh. Yep. One of the things too is with the 12 plant count, you know, everybody feels really limited by it. One of the things that I figured out to kind of mitigate that a little bit and be able to harvest every 5 weeks or so is to, instead of doing a 6 and 6 run, you do 2, 3, and 3 runs. So that way you're still at your 12 plant limit, but you have 2 different runs going at different times. So that way you can harvest the whole crop, you know, every 5 weeks or so. And for home growers, that's like the only thing I could find for like a loop around this 12 plant limit.
Well, also keep in mind the limit is on the amount of plants, not on the size of those plants.
Yep.
So you can veg those plants for longer and keep them in larger containers and build up a bigger root system so that you get more off of each plant. You just have to have a longer vegetative time and a larger container. But you can grow one plant and grow pounds off of it if you train it and if you have a long vegetative period and allow that plant to grow big enough to grow that much flower once you start flowering.
And you know, while we're on that topic of a plant count limit, if you're like a nerd and you really dig the whole breeding aspect and kind of making your own strains, that's what's really fascinating with cannabis, is because it's dioecious. And basically, that's just a fancy way of saying that there's a male plant and there's a female plant. And when you cross the pollen from a male into a female, you get a beautiful diversification of all of those genetics within those cultivars. So with a 12 plant count, that kind of limits you a little bit, unless you grow large plants and you incorporate grafting. So with grafting, you can take several different varieties and graft them onto a single plant. So you can have 4, 5, 6 cultivars on a single plant. And that just exponentially increases your breeding diversity.
I think another essential to follow up with Danny said about having a desire and passion about the plant and then you grow it yourself. And I think fundamentals. Look at grow fundamentals and things like any book, Danny stuff, and Rosenthal, Jorge. I get everyone's books. I read them all. It's all online. So stick with fundamentals, and if you're making, usually when you start out, you're going to make every mistake. But make sure that you're consistent with what you do, and keep a program and a calendar. Right? My high times calendars for a decade are pretty much my Otobi grow work in Washington State. You know, and I mean they're like my Bible, and so my grow notes. So. Like live by your notes, but as far as when you first start out, you have the passion, and then fundamentals, watering, temperature and humidity, nutrients, pH, right? Airflow, in the room. I don't know.
Bacteria.
Right? It's not that many, but you want to be consistent because the plant will adapt to the environment, and then whatever is valuable traits and characteristics that are being expressed, or you can be more reliable that in that same environment, if you're still consistent, you'll have that consistency and predictability. And whatever it is that you're rooting for, you know, and that's valuable to you. So it might be under 0.3 THC or a certain amount of CBD or a certain cannabinoid. It might be the highest THC. It might be a certain bag of peel, flavor, taste, smell. I hope that people have like 20 or 30-year-old cuttings they got from somebody, and you're just taking a clone of a clone and trying to preserve and maintain and find the land races and not outcrossing ubiquitously or, you know, not be overbreeding stuff, you know, but to try to preserve. You get a New York piece of it. Can you imagine how much it would be worth? Some White Widow, New York, even a Girl Scout could big ass cutting nowadays. Oh my gosh. Anyway, stop dreaming, but consistency, a desire. What would be the next thing?
Well, one big thing we got to think about with growing is grow media. Grow media.
Media.
The grow media. Big things that to think about if you're growing in like cocoa, rock pools, soil, water. You gotta start researching into what kind of the qualities that each one has. Every I've grown in multiple mediums, and pretty much also you can come up with great results in different ways for every single one. And there's just into being able to go into it and master at least one. What are some of your guys' favorite media to be working in?
I am the simplest, and I go to Home Depot, I get Sunshine #4, and I use RO water, and that's it. And I don't even feed during beds at all. Now the grant GDPs are, they did need a little bit. They have a different requirement. So I use a different soil. So I use that organic stuff. So yeah, I use the vegan stuff, but only distilled, or I mean RO water.
I'm good.
And so I get half yields, but I don't care because it tastes like candy. And all the leaves are yellow and brown.
I'm good. I got one down here.
And it's that's what you want. If you're growing for weight, repeat, for personal use, take the plant aside in your garden. Try it. Experiment. I mean, Sunshine #4 is like a little microgreen.
Hello?
Nothing. Yeah, on bloom, you want to give it a little bit of, like, say, back guano. That's it.
Adam, can you hear me?
So, like, there's two kinds of back guano, like insect
What the fuck?
fruit bats. I think the insect-eating bats are the phosphorus or flower guano. But anyway, that's it. And make sure.
Adam, can you hear me?
No.
Okay. And don't overwater. Bam. That's my secret. I stick to that. And what I do, I grow, instead of 6 plants, I grow 12 because I don't feed, they get half yield. But it burns away to no ash. I'm telling you guys, it's delightful.
Media. When I was 5 years old, my dad showed me how to build a garden. So I was going into first grade, and I had a small plot, maybe 5 by 10, and we grew tomatoes and lettuce, cucumbers, and squash. And the big takeaway that I got from my father was that you need to build the soil. So I'm really heavy into building strong soil. And something that I found, I don't have a ton of experience with growing hemp and cannabis, but something that I've found out is if you take care of your soil will take care of the plant, regardless of what you decide to grow.
Yeah, absolutely true. I tell people, indoors, pro mix is fine. Just add the things you want to add to it, whether it be green sand, guano, as Matt mentioned. Outdoors, just improve on your soil. Add organic material, add compost on top, and just keep improving on it. And you'll have to feed less and less. And basically, eventually, you'll be nutrient free. You'll be off the bottle, as they say, because your soil will be feeding the plant without you having to add anything to it. And you're spending less too. So it's sustainability, but it's also affordability as well. And I think what Matt mentioned before also is important for people to understand that you're going to make mistakes. But if you keep notes and take notes, you can learn from the mistakes and not keep making them over and over. And the three biggest mistakes growers make, in my opinion, are overfeeding. This is rampant. This is nonstop. Burnt leaf tips. You'll see it even in High Times magazine. You'll see burnt leaf tips. If the tips of the leaves are burned, the plant has been overfed. You can flush all you want, it's still been overfed, and it's not going to burn properly. So overfeeding is really a big thing. Try to feed a little less. Err on the side of caution. If it needs to be fed, it'll let you know. Overwatering is the second biggest one. And the third, I would say, let me see, what was that? Overfeeding, overwatering, and not controlling the environment properly. So temperature and humidity, not dialing those things in causes all kinds of problems, and they can be misdiagnosed as other problems. But what the problem really is the environment isn't ideal for the plant. So those three things are very important. Keep them in mind.
Yeah, overwatering is definitely a huge issue. I've done that before. There is a fine line with cannabis of you don't want to water too much because then they get lazy, right? The roots they want to find water. If you're constantly giving them water, they're just going to stay where they are. But if they have to search for that water a little bit, they're going to spread, thus making your plant bigger. Like for us, we're only on a tenth of an acre this year with our hemp farm. We have 140 plants on there. We water probably once every other week. And that sounds insane, right? But one, we've had a really great growing season. I'm not knocking on wood because every time I do that, something bad happens. So I'm doing the opposite now. But we've had an amazing growing season. The rain gods have been great to us. So, that's awesome. But at the same time, we build our soil with microbes. So these microbes are constantly just breaking things down or organic matter down, constantly having a nutrient source and, having great soil, like Andrew was saying. The drainage is great on it for outdoor growing. Now, for indoor growing, there it becomes a little harder with your watering, right? Because you don't want them to dry out completely. Because when the soil dries out completely, you go to water, the water just comes right out, or it takes you 25 minutes to water one plant. That's just not viable, right? So you got to find like that happy medium. For me, when I grew indoors, I had a schedule. So I would water slash feed Monday, Wednesday, Friday. So Monday I would typically water, Wednesday I would feed, Friday I would water a little heavier. It always got me there because, like he was saying, my environment was spot on, 70 degrees, 40% humidity, great airflow, everything like that. So, you know, uh, don't overwater. I think that was my whole point. Oh, we're talking about mediums. That's totally.
Well, the reason most people would tell you to go with a soil, or what's really not actually typically soil indoors, it's actually a soilless medium made of peat moss and
Yep.
perlite and things like that. Uh, it's more forgiving than hydroponics. Hydroponics has to be really dialed in. There's a lot of things you have to think about because you live and die by the reservoir when you're growing in hydroponics. So everything has to be dialed in: pH, parts per million of your nutrient solution, the temperature of the water, all these things that when they're dialed in, you do get quick growth rates. But I don't think that's what anyone's looking for anymore. I think that's the underground mentality, and we don't have to think that way anymore. In fact, I don't even think indoors is the way to grow anymore, to be honest. If you're growing in bulk, do that in a greenhouse where you get the best of both worlds. You get the sunshine when you've got it, you can control the environment, you don't get the dust and the rain and the wind and all that of outdoor, but you do get the sun, and it's free. It's a big grow light in the sky that you can take advantage of.
The best grow light.
And if you can do light deprivation, with the greenhouse, and you can do light supplementation inside the greenhouse when it's overcast or you want more light to be hitting your plants. You have all those options and opportunities, and I think that's the future of growing. To be honest, I think there's no reason to grow indoors anymore with all the HVACs and all the cost of the electricity for all the lighting and all the air conditioning. It's going to be cost prohibitive at some point as well because so many people are growing so big.
I actually have a question for the panel. That Danny brought something up just now that augmented lighting in greenhouses. Where I'm growing in Oregon, it's like to be honest, we got 200 days a year. It's too cloudy to produce bud at the end of the flower season. So I want to get some LEDs that put in the greenhouse to augment. But honestly, I don't know what there's so many new ones coming out. Annie and the rest of you, what's a good LED to put in my grow light when I get home?
There's a lot of quality LED products out there. I really think that ceramic metal halides are the light of this era right now because, yeah, ceramic metal halides are more efficient than high intensity discharge lights like traditional metal halides or high pressure sodium lighting. And yet, yeah, I mean, even in Washington, I think Seattle, they're paying growers to convert from 1,000 watt high pressure sodium lights to ceramic metal halides that are like 630s or something like that. But they're getting subsidies because it's saving so much electricity.
Well, I want one bad. Thank you.
So CFLs, I think there hasn't been a lot of innovation in lighting, and now there's been a lot in the last like 5 to 10 years with LEDs, with fluorescence, and with ceramic metal halides.
thanks for mentioning fluorescence still. That's the overlooked light source, I think. But there's a lot of plasma comes out those. They're plasma lights essentially, and they're pretty good. I've always liked fluorescence.
I mean, as far as rooting clones, there's nothing better than a bank of fluorescent lights.
So, utilizing supplemental light in the greenhouses at the end of cycles. I mean, we have a lot of problems up here, up north where I'm at in the Maine area, and right now, actually, they have recently come out with a double-ended ceramic metal highlight that is it's a high output that's able to plug straight into your double-ended fixture to replace it. So that's one of the really cool things. I mean, you can get the full benefits of having the high intensity with your ceramic metal highlight light, which is the white light. So one of the things that we're looking for like frost right at the end of your harvest. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah, before we move on, I want to talk a little bit more about light depth. And some might ask, well, why would you select to use light depth? Well, you can extend the season. That's really huge. You can prevent plants from going into flower and whatnot. But another big thing is quality. So if you can use the power of the sun and get the same indoor quality outside. And the way that you do that, some studies have been done, and Ed Rosenthal quotes this, that there's a direct correlation between UVB rays and cannabinoid production. And if you look at around this area, you'll find that the UVB peaks at midsummer. So if you light depth just before then so that you're in peak flower during the middle of the summer, your outdoor grow is going to rival that of an indoor production.
But with a lot more yield.
The spectrum of the sun is different in the summer than it is in the fall. It's as simple as that, right? I mean, the intensity of light in summer is more intense, and that's like plain as day. And yet, people kind of don't understand that's going to have an effect on cannabinoid and resin production, on essential oil, and the quality and the amount of that's produced. So that is like one of the major benefits. But think about the other benefit of not getting powdery mildew in the fall, not getting all the issues that come with fall weather in New England. You know what I mean? Or in Northern California, or anywhere else you happen to be growing. I mean,
anywhere
and
around the
rippers.
45th parallel, right? Anywhere around the 45th parallel. But what do you think down Humboldt?
Well, in some places you do light supplementation instead. In Colombia or in Jamaica, they're just 12-12 all the time. So they do light supplementation to keep their plants vegging so that they can get bigger plants, and then they just stop lighting them and they flower automatically because they just have a flowering cycle for a light schedule.
Cheat code.
Yeah, right. So, but also light depth. The original, NorCal, founders of light depth technology did it to beat the cops and the rippers too, not just the weather.
So another thing that I was just thinking about up here, like pests. How do we manage pests, right? And I feel like this guy might know some things about it.
All right, so yeah, IPM is a huge aspect of growing when you really don't want to spray anything on your plants. So being up on top of them at all times, and actually looking at them and seeing what's happening to them, if it's changing a leaf color and because it has an aphid on it, or you can flip your leaf over and actually stare at it. And some of these bugs you really don't even need a microscope, and you can see them with your plain eyes. And if anyone's growing outdoors this year, there's a huge chance you're going to have some sort of pest that you're going to come in contact with, whether it's caterpillars, butterflies lay their eggs on top of plants, and usually they lay them in the same area every year. So they're going to drop these eggs, and I mean, if you can actually look at these eggs on top of your plants, and if you can remove them before and be on top of it, that's one thing. But if any of those caterpillars hatch, they're going to start going down your buds. They're going to eat inside. They're going to lay feces, and that's where your bud rot's going to start from, which is your botrytis. And then you really got to chop your whole plant down within days, because it's going to spread, and you don't want to smoke mold or any of that. So there's ways to stop it, but there's still, to prevent it before. I mean, instead of spraying anything on your plants, is beneficial insects. And people use ladybugs that are a good one. And then you can go to the more predatory insects like a Cyrus insidious, which is a minute pirate bug.
Lace
That
wings.
will, or a lacewing as well. And then there's Californicus works. And there's just so many different ones that you can use for different pests. And, it's really being on top of your plants first and seeing what's going on to know how to actually attack it. Instead of just running to your local Home Depot and grabbing some Bayer and spraying it on your plants while you're in flower and then smoking it in 4 weeks. And I know I don't want to do that. And I
No
don't
bueno.
recommend anyone doing that. And trying to prevent that and educate people is the biggest thing because, even if you're spraying something on your plants and your neighbor's growing next door, there's a little thing called wind. And the wind can bring things away. And another topic we could talk on is how there's crop dusting for Triple E everywhere. But that's, the second year we're allowed to grow hemp in Massachusetts. To get into that's another thing. You have anvil all over your plants. I don't know if that's still going to be on there, but we'll find out.
Yeah, it's a lesson people learn the hard way that prevention is a lot easier than treatment when it comes to pests. Just checking the underside of the leaves, checking the surface of your medium constantly, and not just checking one plant, but checking the one in the back corner. Uh, that's where they're going to start their attack. Take off dead, undying leaves from your plant. Get rid of them. Don't just take them off and throw them on the ground. I can't tell you how many dirty grow rooms I've been in where there's dead leaves on the floor, puddles of water, things like that are an invitation for bugs. Yellow leaves are an invitation for bugs. Take them off and compost them. Get rid of them. Don't just leave them around. The reason that the sticky traps are yellow is because bugs are attracted to that color because it's the color of decay of a dying plant, and that's where they know they can attack from, and that's where they set up shop, and then they attack the rest of your plants from there. So get rid of that, and you prevent them instead of then having to deal with an actual infestation, which is a nightmare, a nightmare.
Hey.
Hey, before we get started, I hate to cut you off, but we found a wallet. Is there Will Bruner? Wentworth student? If anybody knows Will Bruner, tell him to come up here and see me.
Will Bruner. There's also a lost and found for Hempfest as well. So
there is.
Yeah, we can get it to
They
one.
didn't tell me that.
We can get it to one of the volunteers.
We'll get it to the right now. We'll get it there. Thank you, Danny.
One thing I did want to say is I noticed on this panel when everybody each one of the expert panelists says something, no, there's not anyone else is commenting because they're right on the mic. I mean, these guys are real experts now. I'm kind of the oddball, but I wanted to give you as far as the growing side.
Your wallet.
I'm the other side. I'm the guy who goes to the depot to sunshine and water. But these guys are heavy growers for big production. On my old Toby strain in Oregon, Washington, and around we in Colorado, we had big grows, thousands of pounds. And these are the guys that grow. I got you. Okay, but I'm here because I'm a breeder and I've got some genetic advice that I think would add to the panel. But I wanted to say one thing is test plants.
Where was it?
From everyone that's talking about the environment and the nutrients and everything, always have a cup if you can get just one. But if you're in a big grow, that would always have like 10 set aside and put them in smaller plants out later, different feeding. Really experiment with because every strain is different, and it's because every good strain is a hybrid, which is going to be a cross from some like either maybe a little northern European genetic in it, if it's hemp for sure. But then even a lot of medicinal strains or beneficial strains, there's a lot of shared genomic. There's not that much genomic diversity in cannabis, and you'd be surprised. I mean, hemp is marijuana. Marijuana is hemp, right? And so when you cross a tropical strain, like Danny was talking about, where Jamaica and Colombia, where it's 12-12 all the time, where it's constantly flowering, the native or the strains that have been, that are used to that environment, they're very long flowering strains. They have a very light feeding and different requirements, lighting requirements. And then you get the indica stuff that every good strain is pretty much at least half of or a third. And that's heavy feeding and different. So, And then when you cross the hybrid, there's never going to be such a place as Panama, Afghanistan, right? You're not going to that those two. So it's going to have to be changing and adapting generation after generation from seed, even from when you clone it. There's this thing called drift, where it's relying on genes from it, the capacity to survive or thrive in that new environment, which again, it's always going to be. Now, there are some strains being domesticated for drug type strains now. Some advanced breeders, there's some ones for medical, so it's pretty exciting. And we're seeing more consistency and predictability for terpene profiles and cannabinoid profiles and limited cannabinoid profiles. Like Mark Lewis from Maypro, Dr. Seth Crawford from Oregon CBD, they're doing inbreeding to make very, very specific terpene and cannabinoid profiles. Dr. Seth is a 14% CBG, 8 weeks of flowering, and a bunch of good CBD strains, and even 3% CBC. And Mark Lewis is working with Russo, and they've got some 8 and 10 self-seed generation plants that are highly, highly homozygous and stable, which the gene frequencies for the desired traits pop up, and they were able to use lab testing to maintain very specific terpenes in the plant from all the way down and get a very high level of homozygosity. So they're doing those tests this year with GW Pharmaceutical. I hope nobody boos. But they're doing so. Anyway, it's really exciting to be able to bring that little taste to the table. But I'm kind of, as far as growing, I'm kind of the oddball. But Danny likes how I grow. I don't know.
Well, we talked about mistakes that growers make, but let's talk about like harvest and processing, because I think a lot of people make their mistakes there as well.
Mm-hmm.
Starting with harvesting too early, a lot of stuff comes in a little premature, and then also just how they dry and cure their product, and even store.
Yeah, curing is everything. Like you could do the best job ever, and then mess up your cure, and your weed's gonna suck. It's just that way. Like you could basically get rid of all your terpenes if you cure it the wrong way and dry it the wrong way. You could introduce molds and mildews and bacterias to it. I don't know about you guys, but my way to dry and cure is in complete darkness. I don't put a fan directly on it because in my experience it dries it too quickly. I put it under it, so it just has airflow hitting the wall behind it, coming up over it. And usually, in 10 to 14 days at most, I'm ready to throw them into jars. And within a week of that, I'm smoking some top shelf cannabis. And, it's just about controlling your environment again with growing. With indoor growing, that's like the hardest thing. You got to keep things clean. Like, our farm, we pluck off leaves as long as they're not like any kind of pests or anything. We just throw them on the ground. And guess what? We have compost. Now we have nutrients going to our soil. It's great. Yeah. So it's a little bit different. And then going back what you were talking about with genetics, Andrew and I are really excited about the future for 1-to-1 because the hemp strains that we have are so close to the original cannabis strains. Like they're only 2 to 3 generations away from the original cannabis strains. I don't know why. Oh, Nepalese is one of them, and then G13, one of the original CBD strain, is also one of them. So Andy's our genetic guy.
Can I talk to you after the?
Absolutely.
Wow. Thank you so much.
The colder the better when you're drying as well, like drying and curing, because terpenes, these essential oils that come off. The fact that you're even smelling cannabis in the air is that some of that is the terpenes leaving the plant at high temperatures. So the cooler the better when you're drying and curing. It's really important, and a lot of people don't realize how much water is coming off of the plant either. It's like 75% of the weight in water is coming off into the air. So depending on where you live, that can be a problem that you have to solve with the dehumidifier. In some places, they need to add humidifiers because in places like Colorado where it's just so dry, things happen too quickly and they have to slow the process down. In Northern California, it happens too slowly and they have to speed it up. So it's about controlling the environment when you're growing and after you harvest as well, because you don't want those terpenes and flavonoids to be leaving the plant.
Yeah.
And I had a comment to make on that too. If different strains are different too. Like some strains are so encapsulated in trichomes that you got to dry them quicker. And then, so even for drying, keep in mind different genetics are going to have slightly different requirements. But I talked to a gentleman today that they're doing 24-hour freeze quick dry method, and the stuff I saw looked like candy. I mean, it was like, and I said, man, this stuff could be a couple months old, but it looked like it was big yesterday, stick to the wall. He's like, yeah, I gave it to me 6 weeks ago, you know. So I think that in the very near future, there's going to be highly advanced. I guess it's a machine.
There's definitely this harvest right, and there's cryo cure. There's freeze drying is definitely a thing that's happening. It's an expensive process. It's an expensive machine to buy.
Flash freezing is a little bit less expensive.
Right. Flash freezing is also, and hash makers also love this. I know there's a hash panel later, so we won't go too much into that. But the extract artists, they don't care if the plant is cured at all. I mean, they don't need it cured. They need it fresh, frozen, right?
I don't need it fresh frozen. That's
Do you like a cured plant?
it's a lot easier to actually when you go into the post harvest for extractors to just have it at least dry for like 90% dry, and it's a lot easier of a pack compared to